what's America's pastime?
Football.
Yeah, football.
Woo!
All right. And it's the most popular sport, has the highest revenue of all the major sports, but it's also 11-11 contact sport, so inevitably has the most injuries, particularly head-on collisions, otherwise known as concussions. And my purpose here is to tell you the risks associated with American football and head-on collisions. And it's good to know about the risks associated with football, so it can help evolve the game and change the rules, make it safer and better. And so, what are the causes and effects of head trauma, and how are we changing the game to make it safer? So anytime a player takes a blow to the head, there's a chance he's going to sustain a concussion, particularly usually from something hard like a shoulder pad or another man's head, helmet, and 90% of concussions are associated with a headache, so that's a good indicator to know like if a guy does have a concussion. And according to the National Center for Health and Research, a player should not re-enter a game if they assume he has a concussion, because he might have worsening symptoms that might not show up immediately after the concussion. And he should be evaluated over the next few days. So what are the effects? While one concussion is bad, it's usually multiple concussions that are attributed to the lifelong effects of head injuries. Repeated blows to the head leads to a condition known as CTE, and that's they assume that 50% of all collegiate and pro players suffer from this disease, and some don't even know it. And according to the Concussion Legacy Foundation, a guy named Greg Close, he was a defensive lineman for the University of Texas. He didn't even play professional football, and later in life he suffered from dementia and eventually died from complications from the disease. And he didn't even play pro football, just in high school and college. So a lot of players they go their whole careers without even knowing that they have this disease. So it's important to know. That's why research is higher than ever. And, so now I'm sure none of you would like your kids to ever play football because it seems unsafe. So what are we doing to change the game to make it safer and better? So for one, better equipment is out there, and also they're changing the rules to make it game safer. For instance, you're not allowed to lower your head to initiate contact anymore. And another one is anytime they think he might have a concussion, they're required to pull him out of the game and test him out. So, and also, helmets technology's come a long way since the inception. Before you weren't even required to wear a helmet. Now it's all mandated. And according to the Brain Injury Institute, a player that sustained a concussion is actually 5 times more likely to sustain a second one. That's why it's so important to address the risks that are associated with concussions. A common saying from former players is, especially the older ones, that they never came out of a game. They pride themselves on that. The coach would never take them out of the game. But some of these guys, they might have had a concussion that they're playing through, and then they're at severe risk of lifelong effects from that. So, would they have done it had they had known? Because the information wasn't as good back then. So if they had known, maybe they wouldn't have taken that risk. So, all right. So, we all love football. Most of us love football. But none of us like to see these athletes suffer these lifelong illnesses, sacrifice themselves to the game. So, I think being aware of the causes and effects of brain trauma, that's the first step to really understanding how officials are changing the game to make it safer, and so we can eliminate these concussions and these guys that are, take for instance, Junior Seau. As a boy, he probably had aspirations to play in the NFL. He went on to play in he was a multi-sport star in high school. He went on to play at USC. He was an All-American, top 5 pick. He was living the dream. It wasn't even done yet. He played a 20-year career for 3 teams and surefire Hall of Famer. But after he retired, he actually suffered from dementia, insomnia, and depression, and eventually led him to take his own life. So, he had kids, he had a wife, he had all the money, he had everything you would think would give you a happy life, but because of his illness, his CTE that he had, it led him to want nothing else than just to take his own life. So that's why it's so important to raise awareness for this issue. So do you have any questions for the
Isn't hockey more dangerous?
Well, like I said before, the National Football League, it's got the highest revenue of all the sports by far, so therefore there's a lot more attention brought to it because it's the biggest market, so they have the most attention. That's why it's bigger than any other sport. But that being said, there are probably just as many concussions.
Well, I'm glad the refs have changed their calls, and the football league has changed the way the hits are.
They came a long way with helmets too.
Yeah,
Well,
the technology.
Yeah, like I said before, it was optional. When they first came
Right.
out with helmets, half the guys weren't even wearing them.
Like they suggested, the speed of the game was much like auto racing, where they did an auto racing because there were so many collisions that were death collisions because they were going too fast. So what they did, they put governors on the car, they can only go so fast. Is there any way to put governors on the players, so to speak? Changing the rules slows them down. What else can they do to slow them down? Because that's part of the problem. They're hitting a little bit faster, they're a little bit bigger, and so the head trauma is even worse, even though the equipment might be better. So, how do you slow that down? Through either rules or equipment, or
Well, I think
you can't really tell a player not to run fast as he can, or
right,
not
you
can't
can't.
wait.
You don't want to take that competitiveness out of the player. They say a lot of players play with that reckless abandon, but it's all about nowadays. The game, it's all about playing smart. You talk about now you watch the game. They say that's a textbook tackle in today's NFL because there's a certain way to approach the game now. I think that's the best way to address that situation. It's like you can't tell them to move any slower, but you have to tell them to play smarter, play differently. It's not the same game as it used to be. That's just how it is.
And in college,
Play without a helmet.
their chin straps, I guess if they come off, they gotta come out,
Right.
their helmet.
Yeah, there's more regulations.
So it's,
to
yeah,
make sure.
and they tighten them, they have to
Yeah,
tighten
if a guy loses his helmet in all
Exactly.
levels,
Yeah.
they have to come out for a play. I know that's one point.
Who was the
Right.
first player with CTE?
I believe it was Mike Webster. He was like the poster child for it.
McMahon,
He
too.
brought a lot of attention.
There was a movie on that, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It was really a
McMahon-
good movie.
McMahon-
Yeah, that's it.
What was his name?
Who